Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TotallyHooked.net podcast. And today, this is Frank Howard. Today, we're going to be asking a lot of questions. Just was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and it's often inspiration because they ask a lot of really interesting questions, and I thought it might be interesting to take some of the questions that were asked and delve a little bit deeper into them. Number one, can you be a single president? Meaning, could you be a president of the United States and still be single? Is that something that's even thought of, or is it impossible? Like this guy, he's not married, so he obviously can't handle the presidency. Or this woman, this young lady, she's single, she's not married. She can't be president. Another interesting question, is atheism a religion? If you believe in no beliefs and you have an ideology on that where you're willing to defend it and fight it, is that your religion? Gender equality. Wow, we're going hardcore today. Holy crap. Emma Watson this week was on a year-long project talking about gender equality. Is that ironic? Gender equality? Is a man equal to a woman? Is a man with a penis the same thing equal to a woman with a vagina? Now, physically, they're obviously not this equal, but I think when people mean equality, they mean under the law. And Courvoisier, that's a cognac, wanted to talk a little bit about Courvoisier. And if I remember, I'm going to write this down actually, Clash of Clans update. Okay, and also I'll give you guys an update on how things are going with Clash of Clans. Things are actually moving faster than I thought. Just one day at a time, getting my skulls together. But with all that being said, those are some of the things we're going to talk about today, or we might digress into something else. Either way, get yourself ready. Let's cue the music. Okay, this is Frank Howard at the TotallyHooked.net podcast. Just some real quick updates before we get started. I have the TotallyHooked.net website is up, and if you're listening to this and you like what you're hearing and you really want to help, please subscribe through iTunes. Right now, if I get more subscriptions on iTunes, the popularity will grow, so please share it. This is what I would call an indie podcast. It might sound professional, but I'm just an indie podcaster, I guess. In the 90s, it was a big deal. They would always talk about indie musicians, like there was a band that was signed to a label versus an independent band. And this is an independent podcast. It's just run by me, Frank Howard, in my place that I live at in the Beltway near Washington, D.C., and I'm trying to really put this together. It's funny how much goes into a podcast, actually. There's a lot of planning. You have to get up a website. You have to record it like I'm doing today, but there's a hell of a lot of work. And what I'm noticing is little bottlenecks along the way. I'm really trying to get this microphone fixed. I hear the little popping. Let me see if I hold it down here. This might be a little bit better without the popping. So, oh God. Basically, there's little bottlenecks with podcasting. Like, let's say just the recording is only the first part of it, because when you're done recording the podcast, you want it to sound clear, you want it to sound clean, and you don't want a lot of noise happening. So I like to run it through a compressor and a gate and a limiter and all that stuff, and give it as clear and as professional quality sounding as possible, so that us, we can enjoy a nice, clear, clean, professional product. That's the end goal here. I do want to have a high professional podcast product, no matter how many people are listening. I don't care if it's like just a small group of people or, hundreds of thousands of listeners downloading this, to me, it's important to have high quality because nowadays it's relatively cheap. It's relatively cheap to set up a podcast and have my own quality. But anyway, like anything creative, so recording is just one part, but there's all these little bottlenecks. Like I'm noticing if I don't have one area, then the whole podcast could fall apart. It could be bottlenecked on one little thing. And what I'm thinking of right now is like the website and the design of it. So if I'm submitting my podcast to a website, like if I want it to get on iTunes, it's really important that I have like album artwork that I put so that when, like if you were to click and open my podcast on iTunes, you would see a graphic. Like everybody has a graphic for it. And I've noticed everyone in the new and noteworthy section of iTunes, everyone, basically everywhere, has album artwork. And not only do they have it, all the ones I've seen, it's pretty professional looking artwork. So at first I tried to design my own. I have a little bit of graphic design knowledge, but it's obviously very basic compared to so many of the really awesome designs I've seen on the internet. So I'm just thinking of investing a little bit of my resources and getting myself a clean, professional-looking, really good-looking graphic to have there so that when I do launch this podcast, it'll have a little bit more going for it. Because for the cost versus what you get these days, you can have, for a small price, you can set up a really professional-looking podcast. You can have a professional looking logo and everything like that. So I'm trying to get the logo. The hard part, honestly, now is like that paradox of choice. There's a book that came out a while back, Barry Schwartz, I think, The Paradox of Choice. And essentially, at this point, 2015, there's been so many TED Talks and so much about this idea. This might even be something good to talk about for a while. But sometimes when you have too many choices, you just get like totally stuck. Yeah, it is Barry Schwartz. Like, I think the crux of that, what I learned from that 2004 book by Barry Schwartz was if you're, if you have three, it's like at McDonald's or something, or if you're at Chipotle, you only have three options. You're going to have, okay, that's easy to choose. Like, oh, do I want a small, medium, large, or do I want like chicken, or do I want steak, or do I want vegetarian? And you just choose between those three. However, if you go to a place and you have like 150 options plus, or hundreds of thousands of options, it gets harder and harder. And anybody who uses Tinder knows exactly what I'm talking about. Anybody in the modern dating world knows exactly what I'm talking about. Because suddenly, instead of having like 3 or 4 or a handful of options, you've got the choice between anyone in the world. And naturally, we're just an unfortunate group of people, to be honest, because we would rather be single and wait for the perfect person, look around for like, if I'm a lady, if I'm a woman and I'm professional and I'm in DC, I want someone at my level or higher. It's okay if they're at my level. It's okay, but I might be a little upset if they're at my level. They can't be lower than me. Just like biologically, that's just not going to work for me. They got to be at my level. And anyone who's less, when I think of my level, I like to imagine myself as being more than what I am. No, I don't know. That's too dark. That's too mean. I'm just thinking about myself. Like, you know what? Yeah, fuck it. I've got my imaginations. I want a perfect looking woman. I want a woman who has the potential to be like on a sports swimsuit magazine cover with like a master's degree in engineering. Who does something? There's way too many nonprofits. There's way too many nonprofit women in this area. I prefer like someone who does something like in the medical industry, something like something, yeah, like nursing, a doctor. Yeah, a doctor would be nice. Or yeah. I mean, if you're just looking on paper. I'm talking about if you're just looking on paper. Obviously, if I have chemistry with anyone and it just like, it works and there's positive, then fine. But if you're just saying on paper, those are the things that you're looking for. And yeah, I guess so. This goes really well into this gender equality or inequality conversation with Emma Watson about, yeah, like guys and girls have this issue. You know, we kind of want to, we're in this constant pursuit of something greater. Maybe there's a inside of us, we think that if we get with someone who's doing their thing and they're beyond us, maybe some of their energy is going to rub off on us. Maybe if we get with somebody who's, you know, living their life to the fullest, wakes up every day just so positive, they've got a clean place, they've got they're sociable, they're liked by a lot of people. I don't know, I feel like for the ladies, they're just naturally social creatures, so I think they're attracted to guys that are incredibly social, like a guy that's the guy who's got a lot of friends, you know, he's got a lot of girlfriends, he's just, you know, he's very influential, so he has a lot of social ties. Women find that, I think, very attractive, a guy that has a lot of social connections, is very likable and very attractive and very influential. I'm not sure if guys like that. And what I mean is, like, yeah, I think of course a sociable, I mean, that's the politically correct thing. Yeah, it's like a sociable woman is very attractive, but I don't know if that's the number one attractive factor. Of course, everyone's going to say the guys are into really physical things, but like personality-wise, I think guys just they're attracted to people. You know how you like people who like you. Like, you know, if a woman likes you, then, you know, that'll make up for a lot. Like, I think attitude, personality makes up for so much, no matter what a person looks like. And physically, I think anybody can be in enough physical shape to where they can be really attractive, in my opinion. I think that no, you don't have to be like this supermodel type person, but you can take care of yourself. Anybody can work out. I think if you can't find the time 3 days a week to just take care of yourself, then I think some priorities. Well, I mean, I'm not trying to tell people what to do or how to live, but it's a values thing. And to me, I like to exercise. I like to take care of myself. So I expect the same from others. Anyway, dating and this Tinder thing makes it hard because you literally have thousands and thousands of options. And if you're halfway decent human being, I know for me, I get a lot of matches on Tinder. Like, I can match with people, and maybe it's because not only I think I'm better at writing than I am. Like, I'm speaking right now into this podcast. I don't consider myself like, and you could probably tell already by listening, I'm trying to work on being more active and like getting like through my vocal variety, getting people to stay engaged and stay listening to me. I don't think that comes to me very naturally. Writing comes to me very naturally. I feel if I were to take time and craft a set of words, a set of descriptions, I can put stuff together that is really attractive. I think I can get people hooked on an emotional level with my writing. And I think it's a skill that's really good. Okay, that really sucked. My microphone, I accidentally hit the stop button. I think I actually just hit the pause button and it paused. And then it just lost it. Okay, I think I lost a little bit of the flow there. Please bear with me, guys. Grow with me if you want to rationalize it some way. Grow with me in this podcast because I'm going to be still screwing up. If you've noticed, if you listen to the first podcast, the sound quality of it was the worst. The second podcast, it got a little bit better. And the third, it's getting better. I'm just getting better and better at doing this and figuring out like the best ways of recording and getting this set up. So, man, I was on a really good roll there too. That was a really good one. So talking about, Tinder. Back to Tinder. We have these choices. We have thousands and thousands of choices. And maybe the written word's good. And there's nothing more satisfying, especially on Tinder, than the potential of meeting somebody new who's very attractive, who's very energetic. And that application gives you that so quickly. Like, to the point where if there's somebody semi-attractive, you're going to look at it and be like, well, now that I've matched with these like 100+ ladies, maybe I can do better. Maybe you start to delude yourself. And I don't know, are women better at this than men in terms of, are men better than this at women in terms of being realistic? Where if a woman gets like a lot of matches, there's a lot of options out there, is she going to settle with above average? Because I think that's most of the matches out there. I think there's great above average relationships out there. There's more than enough good women out there. There's more than enough good guys out there. But like, I don't think, in this area at least, in this Washington, D.C. area, I don't know if we want just above average. We don't want to settle for somebody who's just above average. I'm being real. It doesn't sound very cool, but that person's above average. They've got they've got a master's degree. They've got a good job. And I know we value ourselves in terms of that. I know women value themselves. That's usually the first thing that they tell you. And here in D.C., it's something that people have complained about for years. I don't think it's going away. But the first thing a woman will tell you, or the first thing a man will tell you, or the first thing they'll ask you is, what do you do? People size you up. What do you do? Where did you go to school? Because they want to get a sense. And I think it goes beyond just this area. We are all constantly sizing ourselves up. Am I higher up or lower than this person? I think is what we're all kind of naturally asking. And, for good reasons, a woman wants to be with somebody who's higher up. I think, biologically, people could disagree with me on this, it's fine. But things are, in relationships, I feel like things are better when, I guess when the guy, and this, I know, this is so weird because we're talking about equality here, but I feel like a woman needs to feel safe, and usually, in order for a woman to feel safe, she needs to be with someone she can trust and who's confident, and usually someone who she can trust and who's confident has some more skills that are slightly higher, something that she can look at and say, okay, that makes me confident. The fact that he's got these things, the fact that he can do these things, that makes me confident. Now, we can call that equality, but how equal is that? Because if we were really with somebody who is our true equal, like if I was just going after somebody who is my true equal, I'm not sure if that would translate very well. I don't know. This is kind of controversial because everybody wants... What do we mean when we say equality? Because I alluded to this in the intro. Like, what are we really saying equality? I think people should be treated equally. People should be treated with respect. And in a lot of ways, we're already there. But when they say things like equality, here's the problem. I think in most people's definition of equality, here's what they're saying, and I think here's what they're thinking. They're thinking things can be equal for everybody so long as if everything works out for me, or if I do a little bit better than everyone else, then things are equal. But if I get fucked over a little bit and someone else has something that's better than me, then I'm going to throw a fit, and I'm going to get really pissed off, and I'm going to just do something. Because if somebody else is getting a little bit more than me, then there's a massive injustice in the world, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm pissed. I'm going to fight for equality. And that's, it is what it is. But when I look to people who are successful, people who are doing really well in all areas, people that are in really successful relationships, people who are in really successful, who have successful physical bodies, people who are financially successful, I think at some point it's like basically evolution. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. People, when they're at the next level, they don't think like that as much because they don't need it as much. Meaning, if you, if you're like a multi-millionaire, to you fighting over, nickel and diming something, if you're upset, that doesn't matter to you because that's just pennies. People are fighting over pennies when that fight and argument for half an hour over a few pennies is wasting your time because your time is more valuable. The time that you have right now living on Earth, breathing, is so because you have millions. You have more money than you could spend in your life. Why would you waste your time fighting over like equality? Because what you have is infinite. And maybe that definitely translates in other areas like relationships. People that are in solid, good relationships, they're not fighting over equality. In fact, I noticed there's a lot of really happy, what people don't recognize in the media and out there is there's a lot of people that are in happy, loving relationships. And they don't have a need to go out there and proclaim a need for equality because relationships are unfair. They're not out there trying to talk and bring fairness and change other people, especially. That's one of the... When you start getting to where you're trying to change other people and get their viewpoints to make your own, I think that's where a boundary issue is starting. When people talk to others like, you should do this, I think you should do that. Why do you think someone else should do that? Why are you trying to control them? Why are you trying to control someone else? And in a lot of ways, we're already equal because we're all in a large... I'm thinking on a very larger scale. It's so easy to forget how humanity is so much more similar than we are different. In that sense, we are so equal. We're one. I think there's this idea of oneness. We're all one in humanity, and it doesn't matter what kind of human you are. You have the capacity to grow, and you have the capacity for greatness. And when you see yourself as a thing, when you see yourself as a woman with a vagina and a man with a wiener, and you're thinking we need to be equal, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, just by definition, a man is not equal to a woman. A woman is not equal to a man. But equality, I think the idea of equality, ideology, it is kind of an ideology. And it gets bad when people fight to try to change people. Like, my ideology is that men and women are totally equal. Well, and that's kind of putting it in a bad light, too, because that's what guys always say. That sounds so chauvinistic, too. Like, well, they're saying that we're all equal. We're not equal. And of course we're not equal. But if you're trying to change me, I have to ask you, like, have you accepted in yourself how you need to change? Because the fact that you're trying to change someone tells me that there's something wrong with you. Because if you were okay, you wouldn't be trying to change someone else. Does that even make any sense? Am I totally losing my mind here? And the reason I'm saying that is because there was a time where I was far more demanding of trying to control things than I am now. And I remember those times where I would say people should be like this, they ought to be like that, and you need to do this, you need to do that. When all those things I was trying to tell other people, it was actually... what I needed to be doing was looking at me in the mirror. how am I changing myself? And I think until we can get to the point where we can try to help ourselves first, it's going to otherwise cause more and more harm. Because how do you know? How do you know where another person is psychologically, emotionally, physically, unless you're asking them first? Because otherwise, if you're just telling somebody to try to change something, you're not looking inward. You're not trying to accept where you are. And that brings me to, I think I talked about this in the introduction, the success of other people. I'm 32 years old now, and I'm starting to notice, this is very subtle, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I might be brushing my teeth, taking a shower, thinking about things, and I see other people my age or younger who are highly successful, and I've said this before, for the most part, I'm actually very, very happy for them. I almost feel like a need to bless people that are more successful than me. And typically, that's been people that are older than me. But now, at this age, there's people younger than me who are very successful. And I'm thinking about all these years. I'm thinking back in, like, the year 2001, 2003, like, man, I should have invested in Apple stock. And in the 80s, in the 90s, I should have invested in Microsoft. And then I should have invested in YouTube, and then I'd be like a multi-millionaire by now, and I would have all these things. Why don't I have that level of success? That's essentially what I'm asking myself. Why don't I have the level of success that I want? And I look at it as a chain of decisions that I made, and I see other people, and it's like they shouldn't have it, I should have it. And that's just a dark, unsuccessful way of looking at it. Instead of asking myself, how am I adding value or making the world better, I'm looking at, why don't I get what I deserve? Which is a very immature way of looking at it. It's hard for me to even say this, or I'm getting a little emotional right now, because to say this over a podcast that potentially a lot of people could be listening to admit that I don't have the level of success that I like, because like so many people, if you were to look at my Facebook, my social media accounts, my LinkedIn, it would look like that cookie cutter kind of positive thing. Like everything's perfect, and nobody puts anything negative up on Facebook, or it's very rare these days. I think I used to see it a lot more, maybe from like 2004 through around 2008 or 2010. Positive quotes started to really make their way into Facebook, and fewer people had the courage to say if they were having a tough time or if they were having a bad day, just admitting that, because for whatever reason, when that comes out there on Facebook, it's like, no, you should be positive, and they'll tell you naturally what maybe some blog taught them or some guru taught them about how to be positive. You got to fight through it and be positive. Either that, or people just get attached to having this certain image of themselves. They want the world to see a perfect person, and anything less than that would be too vulnerable, and it's too difficult to do that. So that's the challenge, I think, with social media, especially with Facebook, because I see so much positivity. I mean, we're like in cloud 9, just ridiculous levels of positivity, which is good. See, that's the thing. That's it. I mean, that's truly the top, and that's great. And as we evolve, we can't not include all the steps that it took to get there. And this podcast, something that I'm already starting to like about podcasting is how in the moment podcasting really is. As a regular practitioner of transcendental meditation, and you read about us all a lot. It's a lot has been written about being in the present moment, focused on now. And people have been reading blogs, people read things in writing, and a lot gets lost. But what's interesting about podcasting is what you're hearing is somebody who's in the moment right now. Like, in order for me to do this, I have to be in the moment. I can't go back and edit it. I fucked up and hit stop and then had to start it up again. And I was like, oh man, when you get out of your flow, it's just hard. And this is raw, unedited. This is just raw in the moment. What's happening? I mean, I have a plan. I have an idea, and there's a format that I'm starting to enjoy when putting these podcasts together. But at the same time, there's anything goes. Anything can kind of happen. And as I'm developing, I'm hoping that I'm getting better and my voice is becoming better, and everything's happening. So that's something that I'm dealing with. Is I want to put this and ask this out to people that are listening, though. Is that something that you deal with too? Meaning, like, are you super positive? You know, maybe you've developed yourself. Maybe you've read some books and read some quotes, and you're just a really positive person. You have some quotes. But do you still find yourself, like, looking in the mirror, thinking back about all the decisions you made maybe 10 years ago? You could have done things a little bit differently, and you ask yourself, why don't I have the level of success that I want? I've tried everything. I've gone to the seminars. I've read the books. I know I have. I'm a bit of a self-help junkie. I've gone through, not junkie, that's just such a bad, I got an MBA. I think my self-help, my desire to help myself and make myself a better person led to me getting a master's degree in business administration. Reading Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People when I was 16 or 17 years old. And I always read those kinds of things, and I was like, if I get an MBA, I'll be able to I wanted all of it. I know it's, with an MBA, it also includes things like finance, economics, accounting, just general business, but you also have organizational behavior, you also have project management and operations management, and so many things that's all interrelated. And part of the reason I want to study business was because business, I think, has to operate with all those things. And modern business demands a high degree of social intelligence, high degree of emotional intelligence, understanding your own. I think it starts with understanding your own emotions. And this is all obvious stuff. I think at this point in 2000, I'm just assuming you're a smart person and you already know how important it is these days. In fact, if these days, I'd argue emotional intelligence is so prevalent that if you don't have it, you should really do everything you can to learn about how your own emotions kind of work. We were talking about bottlenecks before. Anger could be a major bottleneck, meaning if you have an assignment that you need to work on, if you have a project, but you're angry about something and you can't let go of that anger, it's not just about let go. If you can't be with the anger in the moment, I don't know if you can operate at your peak potential, because you haven't gotten that emotional payoff, you haven't gotten through that barrier yet. There's a lot of ways to do it. I just said meditation. Transcendental meditation, I think, is a really great way to develop emotional intelligence, but I don't think it's required. But yeah, so it takes work over time, like anything. We think a nice reading and stopping and reading a blog post is going to solve our long-term problems. I think at best, reading those blog posts that give you a quick positive hit of emotion is a good short-term solution. But how are you gonna keep and maintain a positive, a peaceful state of awareness, a peaceful set of emotions, having a constant state of joy, knowing that everything's okay, knowing that everything is, you can sleep well at night. That's the biggest thing. I've talked about life purpose. I did this exercise a few years ago, like 3 years ago, where I discovered my life purpose. And one of my core values in my life purpose is being able to sleep well at night. And I think that's a huge factor. It's something that people don't ask themselves enough. Like, are you doing what you can do to sleep well at night? Because sometimes things, for me, if I had an overwhelming amount of debt, I don't know how well I could sleep at night. If I didn't have friends or family I could talk to get myself through tough things, I don't know how well I could sleep at night. If I was not living to the best of if I didn't have a job, I'd have a hard time sleeping well at night. I know all these things are true because all these things I've had to attain and become as I become the man that I've become. And yeah, if you don't have a purpose, if you haven't thought about these things hard enough, it's a really important and good thing to do. And it doesn't matter, gender, if you're a man, if you're a woman, for a man, a life purpose is really important because, let me ask the ladies, do you find a guy attractive who doesn't know where he's going? He has no idea where he's going. In fact, like if you're dating him, he's like, maybe he's trying to follow you. Hey, where are you going? I want to follow you. I want to follow you for the ride. What do you want to do? Sarah, where do you want to go tonight? I'll do whatever you want to do. You make the decision. You decide everything. You decide where we're going to live. You decide where we're going to go. And I'm just along for the ride. Does that sound very attractive to you? Would you rather somebody who's not really trying to control you or anything, but who just is willing to make a decision? You know how hard it is for some people to make decisions? They would give up so much before making a decision. So that's just the thing that I was thinking about, which leads me to the next question. Actually, this is a complete digression, to be honest. But there was an interesting question that came up on the Joe Rogan podcast. Just saying. And it was, can there be a single president? And I was like, a single president? What does that even mean when I first heard that? But can there be a woman or a man as the president of the United States who has never been married? And I don't think that's possible. I don't know. It actually, it seems pretty impossible. I don't think I would vote for someone who's single because, the first thing they're weird. It just seems weird. I'm a single guy, and if there was a guy who was single running for president, it just seems like it would be weird. I know women would definitely think it's weird. Like, well, why isn't he married? That's the power of marriage in this country. That's how powerful the idea of giving everything to one person. The social power and the social stigma with being single is power. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. It's interesting. I think I talked about this a little in the last podcast, how people will assume things about you based on your relationship status. And it's just something interesting to think about. I just thought it was a cool question to ask. There's not really much. It's just an interesting what if. Like, what if there was a single woman president? How would that change your perceptions of her and your perceptions of the country? What if there was a single man who was a president? What if there was a single man who's like let's imagine a good-looking guy. Well, no, let's just say, how about an ugly guy? What if there's an ugly guy? Would he get voted in? I don't think so. Excuse me. Would you follow a guy who's not married? Would you trust a guy who's not married? Would you say to yourself, well, he's single, so he can easily be influenced, and he's not going to lead. He doesn't understand us very well. It's hard to say, honestly, because, I mean, look at the church. There's some people in religions, in the Catholic religion, that practice celibacy. They don't ever, get with women, and a Catholic priest will give advice on things. And people for a long time have been trusting Catholic priests as giving marital advice and advising people on how to live. Is that, I mean, I can see this going a lot of different ways. I could immediately imagine people right now thinking, no, how could a man who has no experience give any advice? I mean, I could see that. I could also see, if that's your profession, and on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, if you're doing couples counseling, I could see over time, over years, over many years, getting a sense for real problems. Because if all these problems keep coming on your desk, you're a priest and you keep dealing with these, you start seeing patterns, and maybe you can have better decisions on it. I think it just comes down to experience, but that's just me. On a superficial level, the first thing that people are going to think is, no, there's no way, because that person hasn't experienced it. I used to actually think a lot of that about a lot of things. I used to think, unless they've experienced it, they won't understand. And I think that's just the general superficial consensus with just about anything. They don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like to be black. You don't know what it's like to be a woman. You don't know what it's like to be an alien. But as I'm getting a little bit older, one thing that I think is just a beautiful thing about humanity and just us humans in general, we may not know exactly what it's like to be that person, and I think women are naturally better at this than men. This is just me projecting what my thoughts are. But what we do have is the capacity to imagine what it's like being that other person. What is it like right now being a single mom, unemployed? What is it like being a wealthy man who's been through 3 divorces and he's given up a lot of his wealth to his previous wives? What is it like being a child who's like 6 or 7 years old and adults are talking to you like you're a little baby and you understand what they're saying and you feel like they're talking down to you? What is it like being an 11-year-old feeling so talked down to by your parents who are treating you like you're a baby, when maybe there's kids that you've seen at school who are doing very adult things? What is it like being a criminal? What is it like being arrested for something you didn't do? And the reason I'm asking all these questions is because as I'm getting older, the more better I'm able to see what it's like being another person, it somehow makes me more evolved in a way, more empathetic. And not empathy in this superficial oneness, we're all together. I mean empathy in a realistic way, like really imagining what it's like to be another person and then helping that other person figure their problems out. And that's that whole, I think somebody said this whole idea of dying before you're dying. Like the purpose of life sort of is to die before you die, meaning living every day as if it was your last, as if you only had 6 months to live, but not actually you could live forever. I mean, not live forever, but you could have many years ahead of you, but still living as if you only have 6 months to live. Meaning living your life to your maximal fullest, but not thinking too much, not being very difficult, and just getting the things that you want to get done and giving yourself permission to do the things that you want to do. And in order to do something like that, You have to think outside of yourself, your quote-unquote self. Your driver's license has a name on it. It has a number associated with it. That's you. That's who you are. That's how everything is. That's how things have always been done. But I might ask, or I might suggest, that maybe you're more than that. Maybe you are more than what your license says. Maybe it's your destiny. Maybe you're destined for greatness. What would it be like if you were to put on the lens of a future you who's done and achieved these great things, and then that's just your birthright, and you need to take the frequency you have now, the you that you have now, and resonate with somebody that's achieving all the things that you wanted to achieve, getting the level of success that you wanted to get. That's a pretty powerful thing. That's getting me kind of like shaken up right now. I'm thinking, because I'm imagining myself attaining the level of success I want, making the money I want, being in the relationships I want, being as physical as I want in my 30s. And I'm still young. I'm a very young man. To me, 32 I still consider it young. You know, I saw people when I was like 26. I remember there was people when they were 26. I'm getting old. I'm 26 going on 50. Maybe guys say that because they want to get laid. I don't know. Maybe, age for a lot of people, I think for probably 80% of people, I'm just making up some word. Yeah, for 80% of people. But a lot of guys out there, a lot of people, they use age as an ego thing. I know I used to. When I was like 14, I was listening to Green Day, Dookie, one of their albums, and he was talking about being 17. And one of the songs, I'm like, whoa, holy shit. When I turn 17, I'm going to have so much figured out. I'm going to have all these girls. I'm going to be so confident and stuff. 17 at age 13 seemed so mature. And I remember thinking how mature age 24 seemed. I had a cousin who got married at 24. I remember going to her wedding, and she just seemed so mature. I remember looking at her like, wow, she just has this look of confidence, like she has everything in her life covered. She just looks like a grown woman. At 24 years old, she just looked like a grown woman who, and now me, I'm 32 years old, and I think back on those days, and it's like, yeah, it's funny how people judge on a number, It's like that Elias song, age ain't nothing but a number. Yeah, age ain't nothing but a number unless you're trying to use it to make yourself seem older. No. Yeah, people say that. Yeah, age ain't nothing but... Who says who? Who says age ain't nothing but a number? Is it somebody who's too young who's trying to act like they're older? Or is it somebody who's older trying to act like they're young? Age ain't nothing but a number. It seems like it's a rationalization. I don't know. That always kind of wrote... That quote, I loved Aaliyah. I loved her music, and I thought she was a great actress, and it was tragic that she left the world before she did. I was really sad and upset. Like, I remember, right before 9/11 when that happened. I was in basic training in the Air Force. I was down in San Antonio, Texas. Everybody remembers where they were on 9/11. Do you remember where you were on 9/11? Yeah, I was in the Air Force. I was in basic training. That's for another conversation at another time, because I can go into a long story about that. But here we are. I think I'm at 44 minutes, 45 minutes if you count. I'm guessing it got cut off at like 10 minutes in. So now let's go on to our next serious topic. Man, we've been going hardcore today. We've been going deep. We've been going deep, son. Is atheism a religion? Are there any atheists out there? Is there anybody out there whose belief is non-belief? Are there any skeptics out there who everything sort of, in a way, can be argued, anything has a belief behind it, No thing is a thing, I guess. Yeah, nothing, no thing. I always think of nothing as no thing. No thing is a thing because there's still a thing in no thing. So nothing is still sort of a thing. And that sounds like some real stoner shit right there. But I think you guys get what I'm saying. So an atheist believes in nothing. that's just as much as a belief as somebody who believes in something. And there's just different emotions involved. And if I had to choose between two emotions, I think I would try to choose the positive emotion over the negative, only because of what I've learned about emotions. Like, it's been argued by some psychologists that if you have higher frequency emotions, I think you're more effective, you get a lot more accomplished, and you're just resonating a lot better. So if I had to choose between the existential darkness of nothingness, where there is nothing out there, I mean, that's just, to me, that's depressing. There was a time where my general level of awareness and consciousness was at the frequency of that. I'd say my early college years, where every day it's like, yeah, the world is just a horrible place. Everything's just so negative. People, and it's funny how when you have that level of awareness, everything around you seems to agree with that and enforce it. And then the more you resonate with it, the more you enforce it, and the more you find, it's like the Google, you start searching what you're projecting, you're searching what you're thinking. And then after you've mastered that, at some point, it's not as novel. And then for me, I just keep moving on up, moving on up, moving on up, moving on up. So after I had mastered depression, it's like, okay, let's go up a step to like, what's anger like? Let's go up a step. Well, what's annoying like? You know what? Fuck it. What does pure joy and bliss feel like? And let me tell you, pure joy and bliss feels great. This reminds me, though, of like recently somebody was talking about bipolar. Like, so that's the other thing. Is like when you're feeling joy, that's just your bipolarism about to kick in. Something like that. You know, there's always going to be a troll out there. There's always going to be a rationalization out there to prevent. So if you're feeling good right now, just know you're going to crash in a minute. I think the real sustainable way to have a good control on your emotions is when the highs are high and the lows are low. Because you shouldn't ignore the highs, you shouldn't ignore the lows. But when the lows are happening, the more awareness you have, if you're an aware human being, you'll realize that it's kind of like it's not real. You'll realize it's not real in the same sense that and it'll just disappear. When the positive emotions are happening, you'll realize that, yeah, it's not gonna be forever. I'm not gonna always feel this way. And, then you'll level out. And, you might want to, sometimes you might have to take things to extremes every now and then, but it is what it is. So is atheism a religion? I'm not going deep here. This isn't PhD level theology or anything, or I don't even know if atheism, is there like theological, I'm sure there has to be somewhere, theological studies on atheism as a religion. Maybe there is. Science, Richard Dawkins, is that your religion? Science is sort of a religion. Science is the religion of the 21st century, as they say, as I've heard. Because in a system, our belief system is experimentation. Our belief system is things that we've tried in the manifest universe. Things that aren't at the metaphysical level. Metaphysical meaning, basically, the way I understand metaphysics is stuff that you can't prove. But then what's happening is, I think it's just a language problem. This whole, is atheism a religion? Is this, is that? Is science, because science only does so much. I'll just put it to you like that. Like if we were to science the shit out of everything, like, well, science proves that everything in your brain, like beauty, when you see something beautiful, that's just neurons in your brain. But how do you explain the human experience? How do you explain, traveling to the Himalayas and seeing vast mountains? How do you explain the feelings that you're feeling when you're watching a great film? How do you explain art? That's beautiful. It's sublime, as they say. Great poetry really describes these things. They can't, they almost, by definition, are in separate categories. And yet they both are real. And when I say both, I mean beauty and science. Beauty meaning creativity, just something. It's basically the left brain and the right brain, the hardcore logical mixed with the emotional. I think the healthy way of thinking about these is not putting too much weight on the other. It's kind of like you need logic. You have to have logic. And you need emotion. Emotion is a very powerful chemical that very powerful. That's very illogical of me to say that. But no, emotions can make us see things very differently. And yeah, so I think when this atheism is a religion thing, I just think maybe a logical thinker somewhere. It's almost like it's kind of like how, a lot of people say that Islam is a subset of Christianity. Like if Jesus didn't exist, probably Islam may not have come either, because Islam came from, it's a subset of Christianity as far as I'm concerned. Like it branched off from what Christianity was, because if you read the Quran, a lot of stuff that's been written in it, it's like it's talking about, it's like the anti it's not the anti, it's like just a subset. It's like it took things, Miriam, it talked about things like that was already talked about, and it made it its own kind of thing. So in that same sense, like logic is sort of like branching off, and yeah, there's just different categories, and it's just something that's really interesting to think about. But so is atheism a religion? Sometimes people become atheists because maybe they're raised Christian. Like I remember there's a lot of atheists in the South. There's like maybe a Southern Baptist or Protestant or all kinds of religions. Religion just wasn't doing it for them. So they chose what they thought was the anti-religion, or what was the opposite, which is atheism. Because they were frustrated with the way they didn't feel free. And I can understand that. In a lot of Christianity religions, people don't feel free. They feel constricted by all the rules. So maybe they're choosing atheism just because they don't want to have to live by those set of rules. Okay. That was enough of that. Now it's time for something a little more engaging. The word of the day. Today's word of the day is constellate. Constellate. I wish we would have done this word earlier. Constellate. Kind of like constellation. Constellate means to unite in a cluster. To set or adorn with or as if with constellations. To unite into a cluster. Constellate. So yeah, it's like constellations. You see a bunch of constellations. It's because they've constellated. Now here's constellate in a sentence. The members of the family seem destined to constellate around a table, held by the gravity of our affection for each other. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cosmic term for this. I think it's a very appropriate term for today's podcast, constellate. We've kind of constellated a lot of different ideas here with this equality. And, something I'd like to just recommend, just a thought, just to think about. Here's just a little thought. We don't have to hold on to our ideas. You know what I mean? We don't have to we don't have to take a stand and say, that's what it is for me. I'm thinking about this, like the gender equality stuff. I'm a man, therefore I believe this. I'm a woman, therefore I believe that. I'm an atheist, therefore I've got these beliefs. I mean, can you have all beliefs simultaneously running in the back of your head, have all the beliefs simultaneously running, and then use kind of jujitsu your way through it? Can you, for people that aren't familiar with jujitsu or MMA, mixed martial arts, I think, mixed martial arts takes the best of all kinds of different martial art techniques, and they put it together in a way that's the most effective. And I think something can be said, like if you're totally focused on science, maybe you're totally focused on psychology, maybe you're totally focused on beauty and art. Do you have that genius in you to combine the effects of science, to combine what you know about science, mixed with what you understand about creativity, and combine that with psychology and emotions? Can you combine those three in a way to create something totally new? That's just a beautiful thing. So that's kind of what I mean. And I think the only way to get to that level is to have a fully understood set of understandings about one thing, but not hold too much on to those things, to be able to, for a minute, maybe let go of those things so that you can allow new things to come into your life. And with that, I think we should go to my Clash of Clans update. Whoa, just stepped on my iPad. That was hardcore. I could have lost my iPad there. I know I'm coming along pretty well with this Clash of Clans. And I'm hoping in about a month from now I'll have, all of my skull walls. I'm finding out the walls are the hardest part. I've almost got full defenses for my I've almost got full defenses on my towers, but my skull walls are still being worked on. Gosh, it's such a beautiful day out. It doesn't look beautiful out, but man, I'm just glad to be alive right now. I got to be honest. I think probably 80% of my day are like that. I can't go around telling people that because they think, "Oh, you asshole." You know, a lot of people. I don't know why. I don't feel like going around sharing how awesome my life is all the time. My experience has taught me just not to do that. But I'll tell you, probably 80% of my day, it's pretty blissful. On this Sunday afternoon, I got a lot to be thankful for, I'll tell you that. I'm just thankful that I'm really healthy right now. I'm really thankful that I'm able to record into this podcast. I'm really thankful that I'm working towards something. I'm thankful to have survived a lot of different, tests in life, a lot of challenges. I'm thankful for my education, my MBA. I'm thankful for this caramel mocha I just had from McDonald's. And I don't care if people are going to judge. These caramel mochas at McDonald's are the shit. They're the shit. They're awesome. So I just logged into my Clash of Clans account, and I was going to go raid, but why would I raid right in the middle of the podcast? Okay. Edit layout, remove all. Let's see. Here we are. 82. I've got 82 purple walls left and 168 skull walls. So I've got 82 left, and I've been doing about 2 a day, so that makes sense. I think last time I checked in, it was like 99. So now I have 82. That makes sense. Hopefully next time, as the number gets, the number of purple walls getting lower is a good thing. It's like a countdown. So now we're at 82. Next time it might be a smaller number and smaller as we go along. I can't believe I'm actually doing that as a counter. But it's kind of cool. If I don't know. I can't imagine very many people caring. But if you play Clash of Clans, like if there was some guy giving a podcast and he's giving me an update on his walls, I'd probably be like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool because I play Clash of Clans and I know how hard it is to get those walls. So good for him. Good for that guy. But, a lot of people don't think like that. So we have to cover our bases. So here we are. It's about 50 minutes here, which means add that 10 minutes, probably a 1 hour long podcast. This is a longer podcast than was expected. I'm going to try to actually do another one in this afternoon, possibly. But overall, this was great. So let's conclude this podcast by going over some of the major themes. They always go in a different direction than we thought. So we were going to start, inspired by the wonderful Emma Watson. This podcast wanted to think a little bit about gender equality. We thought about the success of other people and maybe Why do we sometimes think, don't I have that level of success? We considered the idea of what it might be like to have a single president of the United States. We talked about atheism as a religion. And then finally, we went over our word of the day, constellate. Well, that's all I got for this podcast. This is Frank Howard, and it's the totallyhooked.net podcast. If you're enjoying this and if you're becoming a regular listener, please subscribe on iTunes. Actually, subscribing on iTunes is more important than a comment or a feedback, because when you subscribe on iTunes, that's what moves this podcast up. And hopefully the more listeners I get, the more able I'm to invest my time and my energy in making this better. I'm hoping to do a lot more things with it. I'm really wanting to start doing more interviews, getting other people, but I only have so many resources, and the only way I'm going to put more resources into this is if it proves to be profitable for you, for me. Number one, I'm trying to make something that's valuable. Okay? I'm trying to make something that's really valuable for the world. And by, writing good things, spreading the news around, sharing it on social media, I can't tell you enough how grateful I am if you're doing anything like that. So this is Frank Howard, the totallyhooked.net podcast. Please feel free to visit on totallyhooked.net, and I hope everybody has a wonderful week and a wonderful day, and I love you. All right, goodbye.